And we're back with a question and answer session from, or as it's been dubbed now, After Dark, where we take questions from the chat. We have a lot of questions, so I'm gonna probably end the chat, the question bot, because it's.
Dear.
Actually, no, it's not actually that long.
Okay, good.
That's what she said.
It's strange because like I started it like right after we started, and I've seen a bunch of questions pop in there, but I'm not seeing them pop up on the question bot. Maybe the question bot's broken. Let me see. Yeah, I think it shut down for whatever reason. Hold on.
Pro streamer.
Yeah, it's a bot that's it sort of works. So if you ask a question, feel free to ask a question again. I'll skip it if I have to. Yeah, it looks like the last question was submitted was from 3:24. So and it's currently 4:24. So it's about an hour ago. It's still not coming up. I saw that question there, Stefan. It's not coming in. Let's see. Oh wait, because I closed it again. Let's see. Stop. Start. Oh, okay. The bot is crashing. That's what's going on. Well, I wasn't anticipating this. Okay. All right. Now it's working. You should pull it off and it crashed again. All right. I have to figure out what that is. I may have to turn off the streaming PC entirely and get it to work again. So we're just going to kind of have to work with what we have. I'll do my best to go through the questions, but I'm going to set a hard limit of, gosh, I'm not going to be able to get through all of this, y'all. But I'll get through what I do have. The first question comes from Artemis TGM, who asks, the Paladin is traditionally a tank/healer. The ship seems to be a great bunker ship, and landed could use as AA. With all the empty and no SCU space, could CIG add a tier 3 med bed?
Okay. So first of all, the Paladin is not a tank/healer. It's the sword of God to bring his righteous fury down on the enemy, on the heretics and the faithless. So, considering that, I don't think we'll see a tier 3 medbed. It would be in there. Instead, the Paladin is bringing down the pain. It comes in, brings those size 5 guns, and rips everything on the ground apart. Quite simple.
It's Paladin is in probably more Wing Commander reference, because wasn't that one of the handles of one of the Wing Commander protagonists? Was Paladin?
Your buddy. Like I think he showed up in the expansions.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. He was he's either Wing Commander 2 and the secret mission expansions. I don't think he was in the first game.
He was in the first one, wasn't he? I thought he was in the first one.
Paladin? I can't remember. He was like Scottish.
Yeah.
And in the third game, he was in the third. He was definitely in the third game.
Yeah, because he was John Roy
Davies, continuing character.
Yeah, it's just Statham.
Yeah.
Or what's his?
Paladin. Shot glass.
Let's see. Starting up the bot again. I'm running it directly from the location rather than from its. It usually shuts down. Yep, it closed again. Yep. So I'm just gonna do my best to keep going through it. All This is a good question. Oh, what if any Chris Roberts games are still worth playing? Vertigo and Griff. I'm sure you probably have the most experience with Chris Roberts games. I have some experience, but
What are you trying to say? I'm an old guy and I was around back then? Is that what you're trying
Yes.
to say? That's funny.
Basically, all the Wing Commander games are still pretty decent. You can probably find them pretty cheap these days.
Yep.
I mean, if you like retro gaming, Wing Commander 3 is still pretty decent. Wing Commander 4 is decent. Wing Commander Prophecy is really light on the plot. Basically, the big reason to play Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4 is writing, the plot, the acting. Mark Hamill, all those actors were great. Every cutscene they were in. Wing Commander Privateer is still an excellent sandbox open universe game. They actually remastered Wing Commander Privateer, a spiritual successor done by the same people that did Rebel Galaxy. It's called Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. It is basically Wing Commander Privateer updated for more modern audience.
Yep, it's good too.
You can look at that. Freelancer, unfortunately, Freelancer, I don't think you can get a legit copy of these days.
No.
They don't print anymore. It's a
You can
Microsoft
find
thing.
some.
You
in
can.
freeware.
I just got it. Yeah, I just got it a month ago, and it's actually you can get an online version standalone, but you have to do another software thing to make it run. And it's been remastered. It looks a little cleaner, but I'm having problems playing it. But that's the only one I've been able to find. It's really difficult.
I have a physical copy of Freelancer, and you have to.
Nice.
You have to to play the physical version of Freelancer. You have to get rid of ScanDisk, which is an anti-piracy thing that's no longer supported. That's why you have to get rid of it. Modern Windows does not recognize ScanDisk drivers, so it thinks it's like some sort of virus, and I'm like, no, we can't let this run. So you have to remove ScanDisk to get Freelancer, the physical copy of Freelancer to run. Unfortunately. I streamed it, and Freelancer is still pretty decent. Ugly though, but there are mods out there. Tons of mods for Freelancer out there. If you want to go and play them. Starlancer, another game that Chris Roberts made, is I haven't played it recently, but it's not that. It's basically him trying to lightning in the bottle, trying to recapture the Wing Commander series again at Digital Anvil. I wouldn't recommend it, and that's really all I can think of off the top of my head.
The original Freelancer or the original Wing Commander is still. You can still get it. It's on GOG, and you can play it on DOSBox with them. And I've played it on live stream. It is surprisingly good and still surprisingly difficult for a game of its time.
Like I said, the writing and the plot still holds up to this day.
Yeah,
as really decent.
Yeah,
like there's tons of games and there's tons of like movies and whatnot that ape what Wing Commander did originally all those years ago.
Yeah.
You'll be playing Wing Commander like, oh, I know this trope, but it wasn't a trope at the time.
Yeah. Chris basically invented a lot of the action game genre that would follow after him. Like a lot of the Star Wars, because the first Star Wars TIE Fighter game, I think it was an X-Wing game that came out around the same time as Wing Commander, but didn't have a story really. It was just sort of like they had some text and some missions you completed, but like. The fact that Wing Commander kept having consistent good story forced them to do like X-Wing TIE Fighter Alliance and those things where they actually started to tell stories in them. So
yeah, in my opinion, Wing Commander 4 is probably one of the best stories that I've ever played.
It's great.
And I played it recently too, like a couple of years ago, and it's still good.
Yeah. It's one of those games though, you kind of have to play 1 through 3 to get to understand what the hell's going on in 4 because it takes place post Kilrathi War. So, all right. Let's go back to the questions again, even though the bot's still crashing. Get some of the older ones. Shimpasta asks, do you feel that CIG will address the community regarding this issue with selling components gameplay? And are damned if they do or damned if they don't? Oh, that no matter what the decision they make. I don't think anybody would be against CIG coming out and saying, we're not selling components or ships anymore. I don't think there's a single person who would be crying tears about not being able to buy a ship. There might be a couple people who are like, wish they had the opportunity to purchase like a Javelin, but like the vast majority of people, as long as it's in the game, I don't think people would care. So I don't think that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think they are definitely in a situation though, where if they don't address it properly, it can do long-term damage to their reputation, which would then affect new players entering the game in a higher level, especially as which is also not a good thing, especially when Squadron 42 is, as far as I can tell, according to not only external sources, but people I know who work in Squadron 40 on Squadron 42, they are chaining themselves to that 2026 date. They're going to get it done. Come hell or high water, that's going to come out.
Good crunch time, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's not
like
really
every other gaming studio.
They're not really crunching, as far as I can tell. What I've heard though is more of that. They're at that stage of development where you want to cry and punch things because it's no longer fun because you're no longer making new cool things. It's now, why does the game crash after 3 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Why does the game crash at this specific moment? What's going on with this?
Yeah.
You know,
I've been there as a mechanic where
Yeah.
you're basically, you got all the new parts installed. It should work right now. Why don't you work, you stupid thing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna twist your little nuts off. I got a wrench right here.
it's whenever you build a PC
all
and it
those
doesn't
little
post and you're like,
detail
why?
work,
I put everything in properly. What's going on? You know, it's that stage, the 90-10 rule.
Yeah.
So that's, but you know, as a result, like I don't think they're in a they're in a difficult position, but they're not in a position that they can't thread the needle, but they do need to improve their PR. So,
I mean, they kind of did address it or siloed it.
they sidelined
more
it.
or less.
Yeah.
But I think the question goes a bit deeper. CIG has to address financing past beta, past 1.0, and sooner than later. That's the big thing I say. I could see them doing it next year or the year or 2027 after Squadron 42 is out, so they know what's revenue from the game, what's still missing, and so on. But they have to address the issue.
All right. Next question comes from. Let's just pull one from the chat that I can see. Iris asks, with all the questions of shady monetization, pay to win, and so on, what is the line? What point do you walk away from Star Citizen? This is a personal thing, not a recommendation, obviously.
When it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. That's the
That's the line for a lot of people, really.
I agree with that. I was going to add something though, a little bit differently. I think sometimes it's also a matter of where your head is in relation to Star Citizen, because you can be having fun and at the same time getting pissed about, you mentioned monetization.
Mhm.
You know, my struggle is the fact that I hear so many people who will talk about CIG, this, that, and the other, but then they keep spending money. And
Yeah.
it seems like their frustration comes from that. There is a point of protest that says, I'm not going to spend any more money. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying I feel like I've contributed what I want to contribute. And until I see things that bring greater satisfaction to me, I'm not going to spend any more money. Then there are the people who literally need to stop spending money. They literally need to stop spending money because the goal of spending money in this, no matter what, I know we don't like hearing it, is supposed to be about supporting the project. And supporting the project doesn't always mean that the decision making is going to be the right decision. Anybody who's ever run a business before, you may start out with the best intentions of doing things for your business, but you make mistakes. You make faux pas. You thought something was going to work and it doesn't. That comes apart with building business. And I know that we say, well, CIG's been in relation for 10 years or 12 years and they should know better. No, that's not the case. You can still make bad calls. But I agree with HC that it's not just fun. We still have to keep in the back of our minds that this is still being in development. And I'm not trying to fall in the whole alpha excuse or anything else. I'm just saying it's a reality. So if you're maxing out on this stuff, take a break. Seriously, take a break. Star Citizen was here 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 3 years ago. It's going to be here 2 years ago from now. And for some people, it's good for them to step back from it and come back and say, well, let's see how things are going when they get here. But some of us consume this stuff so much that we don't realize that we're we're putting ourselves on our own high blood pressure medicine, basically.
Yeah. Well, the world is not exactly no matter what perspective you live in, the world's not exactly in a pleasant place to be in right now.
Right. Then you come to this game and get frustrated.
So like, it's just like social media or any other kind of thing. Sometimes it's just best to just learn your limits and walk away because the world is also built around the idea of selling you as being as negative as possible because it gets you the most attention, it gets you the most clicks, and it gets the most. The problem is it also drives up anxiety. So there's nothing wrong with going like, hey, this game sucks ass. And as Virgil was saying, you're not having fun, then don't force yourself to continue to play if you're not having fun.
Take a break. Yeah, take a break. It's because I know some people say just leave the game. Because people say, well, if you don't like it, just leave. I'm not telling people to leave. Yeah. I'm just telling people manage themselves. Take care of yourself. Gaming is supposed to be, HG's point, gaming's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to come to this universe and this world to enjoy yourself and relax and chill. And instead, you're ready to call an ambulance because you got to go to the nut house. That's not what gaming is supposed to be about. So,
in the end,
whether you go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And I said it really depends on what you feel about the project. If you have fun, if you can look past the mistakes and see what's going on, that's okay. Marketing messed up. How did you say, Paul? The developers made a nice cake and marketing shit on it.
Sat on it and took a big shit on it and then farted all through it. Like,
if you can look past the shit and still see the cake, you might be fine. I, for example, the AI blades were bad decision. I looked past it because we had the Idris, servers were running smoothly, we had the Hathor event, with the Polaris event. I still picked up some Warbound CCUs. Because I thought, a couple bucks here and there, why not? I have fun. I want to spend this money. Not because I have to, I want to. Is it a smart decision? Probably not. But on the other hand, we gamers do like to support those things which we enjoy doing. And so Citizen is, for me, it's fun. I don't care right now about the AI blades, if I'm honest. Too much, because if I log in with my friends, they don't matter. We can play. On the other hand, the question obviously is now in the room. That's, I think, the bigger issue is CRG pulled forward or fast-tracked us to how will you sustain the game 1.0? And that's the question where I say that's much more interesting than if they say equipment right now or not.
Let me see, there's another question up here. There's a couple questions because Morphologist just released a video talking about how he believes that the capital ships just aren't being built effectively and that they just won't work in the game.
Is that the turret one where he's like, the turrets suck? That Buzzcut Psycho released a video a couple of weeks ago, and then 3 years ago, Avenger 1 released the same exact video. I covered this on my stream, and I want to make a video about this because, capital ships suck, even though Master Mode was released and supposedly fixed it. It didn't.
No. But the question is like, are they not able to fight properly even with armor? Like, will they never be functioning?
It's not an armor problem. With the problem with turrets and capital ships and be able to defend themselves from. There's a huge balance problem with Star Citizen, with fighters, capital ships, and medium ships. They need to kind of turn the dials a little bit better.
And that leads to another question, which I was going to tie into it as well, which is engineering is finally coming into the game soon with its first iteration. What are you hoping for, and how is it going to change the capital ship gameplay? I think that those two questions kind of dovetail into each other because, like it or not, CIG is going to use engineering as both a carrot and a stick. They're going to make you are not going to be able to optimize your fighter to the best of your ability, and there will be some significant problems because the thing about engineering is that when engineering gets in, they're going to remove health pools. Maybe not entirely, but it's going to be reduce the health pools and be more focused on.
Well, your health pool is going to move towards your component.
Your components, which still do have health pools now. But your hull isn't going to matter as much. And if you're in a fighter, all of your components are going to be in one place. So to take out those components is going to be a lot easier than a ship, which is huge, because those components are going to be, they might be in one place, but they may probably be more armored, or they're going to be easier to deal with because somebody could just walk up with their patented healing beam and go heal beam the engine back into place.
Yeah, I hope we don't have Healy beam ships.
We're gonna have Healy beam ships because Beam Citizen.
Oh god,
I do think we might actually have some future changes here and there where you get like swap out parts and stuff like that. But I think at least for a while we're gonna have heal beams of some kind. But yeah, that will be the advantage. Is that you can repair your components when they're damaged while you're flying them in a larger ship, and with a capital ship, and you have multiple people, you can do that. So you can just stay around longer. Whereas if you get your stuff knocked out in a fighter, you're just dead. You're just dead in the water. You can't do anything.
So what was Morph's? I don't know what I didn't get to see Morph's latest video.
Morph's discussion.
What was the basics of it?
The basics is that they're not able to fight properly even with armor. That, things like the turrets are too weak and they don't track well enough, and it's the same argument.
This is when the Idris first comes out and we're still testing it, right? This is what we're talking about. Okay, I just want to make sure that this is not the final Idris.
It's not just about Idris. It's about
this has been a problem since before the new Master Mode flight model was released. It's still a problem in the current flight model, and Polaris has it. The Hammerhead has it.
We're talking about flight model or defenses with turrets, because flight model and turrets are two different things. What are we talking about?
We're talking about all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
everything's kind of bundled together in this. When a fighter attacks a capital ship, the fighter always wins because the fighter can always get out from underneath whatever shot at it by the capital ship.
So wait a minute. Everybody I see fly capital ships. If every example that I've seen that CIG has put out there, capital ships surrounded by other ships with it. Yeah. Or in the game, I see everybody taking capital ships out by themselves trying to save the world. Am I missing something? This game is supposed to be about fleet movements. About
are we going to do it? Is he going to do it? This is the Griffin. The Griffin Ranch.
I'm just saying. I get it, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the ships are where they're supposed to be. I agree with you 100%. HC. There's a lot of tuning that needs to happen, but I'm saying I still see people playing multiplayer role and not in the bigger picture.
Yeah,
I see a bunch of people getting on an Idris. Like you were mentioning earlier about the Polaris mission. I did the same thing. I went out on a Polaris mission and there were literally 4 Idrises out there. But there's no support ships around them. There's nobody brought fighters, none of that stuff. And that's, to me, the way it's supposed to be ultimately. I know it's not there, but I'm saying people complaining about stuff like this when they're not playing the game the way it's supposed to be played can also be a problem to me.
Well, how do you get people to play the game the way it's supposed to be played? You have to put roadblocks in the way of what players want to do. If you give players ultimate freedom, they're going to have 100,000 Idrises piloted by AI that have railguns that can shoot across the system that deal billion points of damage that destroy you from, as soon as you spawn. Right?
That is the negative. I agree with you 100%. And I think that is a difficulty that CIG is going to have to do. They're going to have to make it where it makes sense to do it, because it doesn't right now. You're absolutely right. But there are also those people who will come to this game and say, nobody's going to fly ships because everybody wants to pilot their own ship, which is not true.
No.
I have a tremendous amount of people in my group who are gladly go freaking mop the floors. They don't want to fly ships. They don't want to be the person with a gun in their hand.
Don't put me in a pilot. I'm not a pilot. I'm not good at flying ships.
I'm just saying, there are plenty of people. We were out the other day and there were people who were glad. The guy who owned the ship didn't want to even fly it. So I'm just saying, you've got to make it, to your point, HC, it has to be incentivized enough for people to feel the need. Now, when the demand comes that if you're going to lose your freaking Idris for freaking 2 weeks, maybe they will start taking fighters and other stuff out there to protect it. That could be the other factor too. But the
fighters have to be a threat
right back.
Yeah,
to the Idris in order for you to incentivize you to fly fighters against a capital. Like
True. To chime in for a bit, for one, the original question, I think capital ships will work quite fine if the shields work how they're intended to be, because then you can't just punch through them, because a fighter will never be able to drain the shield. It's just impossible. And another very simple buff to larger ships could be, you don't need batteries. You always have enough power to power everything full. If you put end of discussion. Like, they are a marine battleship. They're a navy ship. They're in a fighter plane that has to manage its resources. It's a battleship. It just can't stay there until your fighter is out of fuel, and then crash you like nobody's business. On the other discussion with the whole escort ships, and so on and so forth. This is when torpedoes actually work.
Mhm.
Because and the whole subcomponent targeting. That's why I think we see fighters. Because I'll be honest, a Gladius should never pose any threat. Even 10 Gladius should never pose any threat to an Idris, not even to a Polaris.
I disagree.
No,
I
they
think
should not.
I think you should be able to take out engines, thrusters,
No.
turrets, guns.
For me,
take
for
down
me
torpedoes being launched from it.
For me,
Fighters
if
should
you
be a
bring 10
concern for
Gladius,
capital ships.
if you bring 10 Gladius and you fight against anything larger than a Perseus, you just bash your head against a German wall. You can't win this fight. You will lose your ammunition, you can fire what you want, but you cannot do any damage.
Did he
Because-
just mention a German warship in our conversation?
He said German
No.
Hey,
wall.
remember?
German wall,
German
because-
wall. Hey, remember when the Bismarck was disabled by an outdated World War I torpedo bomber?
See,
That was a
and that's
torpedo
different.
That was a
If you
torpedo
bring
bomber.
If you bring 10
Hey,
Gladiators...
what does the Gladiator do in the game right now besides
There
be
you go.
sad?
That's my point. That's my point. If you bring
He said
10
Gladius.
Gladiators...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10 Gladiators do nothing. 10 Gladiators, different picture. Now you have to defend against the Gladiator. What do you bring? The Gladiator.
Nothing, because the PDC shoot down the torpedoes automatically.
No. Because you just overwhelm the PDCs with torpedoes.
Yeah.
And that's what, so I'm spending 25 million credits in game to maybe do
For
something
example.
against a Polaris.
Yeah.
But you see the point. The point is, a fighter, a normal fighter, should not do anything to a capital ship. Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
But if you bring bombers, an Eclipse, a Gladiator, then you can target a capital ship. So to protect yourself from those, because your PDCs won't do shit, and to prevent your turrets from being in a blind spot, then you bring normal fighters again. That's the whole rock, paper, scissors.
I also think that there's things that we're still missing, like e-warfare. We should be able to disable those
Yeah.
PDCs without even touching them.
Yes.
Spellcasters. We need
Yeah.
spellcaster ships. I agree.
Area control or debuff ships effectively.
Yeah.
The ship that can debuff an enemy. We were talking
Hiding
about Zark, we were
signatures.
talking about that earlier about MMOs and like something like that. Like the Sentinel should be something you could use because now that Idris is like cool. You get your shields up, but none of your PDCs work. You can't quantum out because we turned off your quantum remotely.
Or they lose 50% of the detection rate.
Yeah. Masking signatures so they can't like target things properly. There should be some sort of effect to them. Not necessarily like an EMP can just destroy an entire ship, but like it should disable systems or at least turn them off slowly. So yeah, I think the big problem right now is that PDCs are overpowered as shit. And they're far too good for what they were designed to do. And it means that you can solo a ship because you can just use the PDCs to help you out. And it's like that was never the intention.
You can show up as at Hathor with just a single Idris, and then unless somebody has another Idris, there's nothing to do to shoo away that Idris.
And I agree. I think like a Gladius should just feel like it's bashing its head against the wall if it's trying to go up against.
Yeah,
Idris.
single Gladius should not have anything to do
But like
against
a
single
Gladius,
Idris.
a Gladiator, and a Sentinel or like a Warlock, all three together. They should have a shot at taking out that Idris. That's 3 ships versus 3 or at maximum 4 people versus an Idris that's the size that's like 12 people just to man.
You take the right ships, right? There should be ships like the Harbinger, the Gladiator.
Yeah.
The Harbinger's the torpedo fighter bomber, right?
Yeah.
The Eclipse, the Retaliator. You take the right ships with the right support up against an Idris, and you start picking that Idris apart. Suddenly, that person flying that Idris, if they're by themselves, has to be concerned with the well-being of their ship. They're going to get disabled. They're going to get boarded, and they need to leave. They need to leave the area because their repairs are going to be more expensive. But right now we don't have that. And that's kind of the problem I have.
And the other problem is that when you're dealing with ships that don't have PDCs, like the Hammerhead, which is designed to take on fighters, they don't
and
really
torpedoes and missiles,
and they don't really work for those. It's funny part is that I think it's the PvPers who have said this more often than anybody else, but like people like Avenger 1 have basically said, break the turrets. Make the turrets on larger ships super efficient and better than anything else. And it's like, well, that's not realistic. It's like, well, you could just hand wave it because it's a turret on a larger ship. It's got more power or whatever. It can
special
stick
guns
in more,
that special guns that can only be mounted on like a capital ship power plants, on the turrets. They take too much power, but they're higher velocity.
And just give you some auto aim ability, be able to lock on and target a little bit.
Well, we already have auto aim. I mean, the core problem, I've watched all 3 of these videos by Buzzcut Psycho, Morphologist, and A1, and the problem comes down to hit probability. And this is the same problem that we had by the U.S. Navy in World War II in the Pacific and over Europe as well, was it took thousands upon thousands of rounds of ammunition to shoot down a single plane off a battleship. And until they invented the variable time fuse, which was basically a tiny little Doppler radar they were able to fit into a 40 millimeter shell and bigger, which allowed fuses to detonate near an airplane. It went from thousands of rounds to about 400 rounds, to a couple hundred rounds to actually shoot down a Japanese Zero.
They promised uns flux very soon on Con 42, so let's
hopefully.
I mean, we have the pyro bursts. Already exist in game,
and I mean.
But like I said, the core problem is just hit probability, and you can solve that right now, believe it or not, by adding extra dispersion to all sort of size 4 weapons. The Clausen-Werner laser repeater, the size 4s, the Rhinos, just add more spread, and suddenly the Hammerhead just becomes better because you're just okay, go.
Yeah, you don't need to do this. You just have to give the turret a modifier.
Yes, and I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
But CIG doesn't want to do that for some reason. They don't want to give the turret just a modifier. Either it's really hard to code, or they just don't want to bother. If you want to do it right now, you just make the Clausen-Werner size 4 laser repeater, which mounts on the Polaris, which mounts on the Idris, which Hammerhead, which mounts on some other ships as well.
Big ships, anyway.
Yeah,
so.
And it mounts on some fighters too, but you just give it extra cone of fire. That way you have a slightly higher hit probability. Because the Hammerhead puts out enough fire, if 3 or 4 turrets lock onto the same fighter, you're eventually going to get some hits. And one of the big problems that I get from the Morphologist video, from the Buzzcut Psycho video, from the Avenger 1 video is it's not fun to crew large ships to be anti-fighter support because it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. It feels like it's a waste of your time. It's not engaging. You're watching your lasers go at the target, but nothing's hitting. You're not getting any positive feedback. Actually. And that's the big problem with what we're facing right now with turrets is 1, they're not a deterrent, and 2, they're boring to play because you don't get any.
All right, let me move on to the next question because we're going to move through some of this. Steve the Dancer. We already talked about that. On to what would you say if PDCs had a different seat on the bridge where an operator has to choose the targets and PDCs have capacitor limits, so timing can be a thing. So like have PDCs be a manned option rather than being unmanned.
I suggested that because back in Freelance.
Yeah.
If you flew a trade ship or a ship that had like a lot of turrets on it, you'd basically get into like this unlocked third-person camera, and then you'd look at where you wanted to shoot, and you'd fire. Only the turrets that can actually hit that target would fire. But if you have like a big ship covered in turrets,
Reclaimer used to do that.
But that's what I was thinking. You have a seat, you get this cool little wireframe view, and you kind of choose a target, and only the PDCs that could target that ship would fire at that ship at that time. And I thought that'd be a nice way to allow PDCs to shoot at ships, at fighters. If you wanted to manually override, you could do that, but automatically they would only shoot at torpedoes and missiles. But it's a good idea, I think.
I mean, it would probably be interesting if you could attach a blade and make them some sort of combined remote turret. Because baseline, I think they should work on auto mode only against ordnance. So if you just have your baseline PDCs, they only fire against missiles and torpedoes. Because I think we don't have when they nerf the PDCs in terms of damage and in terms of targeting, I see them getting very easily overwhelmed with missiles, as is. And if you put a player in there, it might get even easier to overwhelm them. And then there's the question, how efficient do you have to do them in terms of damage, in terms of detection range? So personally, I say make them an automated system that works, well balanced. And if we'd love to put in an AI blade that allows you to take manual control of them, and then you could fire against fighters for loss and giggles. But you have to manual use them as, for example, like you said, Vertigo, you have to target the fighter specifically in some sort of remote turret view or something.
I think the big thing is that the nuance of what CIG has introduced with flight blades could easily be replicated to other parts of the game. Because we often talk about the controversy of flight blades, but as you who've actually tested the flight blades can tell us, HE Vertigo, it's that it's not nearly as, it's more minor, but it definitely allows for a nuance to occur. So like I could see a PDCs having an AI blade, which is just only to target ordnance. And then if you wanted to get a better blade, you can get a blade that would also target ships, but it would cost you more power, or there's some other downside. And maybe even a base PDC has neither of those blades, and you just have to have somebody manually targeting the incoming targets to be able for them to pay attention to. So now it becomes like a crewed seat rather than just an automated seat. But I think the other issues is I think the issue is more that CIG at the moment could dial up or down some of these things, but haven't. And I think a lot of that is because CIG's really only had capital ship gameplay, true capital ship gameplay, since December. So it's been half a year, and they've been mostly focusing not really on balance as much as it has been on like performance and like the little other bugs and small problems. I think hopefully, and maybe with things like the Polaris, the Idris, the Perseus, all coming out in the next year, all have already been released out next year, that they can finally sit down and go, now we have more information. How do we tune this to a way that works? So, which also includes things like engineering, because as Seven Man says, it's all, there's no point in tuning this for capital ship gameplay until engineering's in, onto all of the different features are in. So, all right, we've got a couple more questions, I'll definitely try to pull some from the chat if you post them in chat. So, because we only have a handful left. A lot of them, like there's another one that's like talking about do you feel CIG needs to start communicating more with the community and having more call to actions to test part of the game? I'm gonna be honest, I don't think CIG could have more communication with the community. They already have plenty of communication with the community. I think the issue stems from what kind of communication they have, or how do they speak. We're no longer in a technical deficit of CIG not talking, and more in a I want to say skill issue, but it's not skill issue necessarily. It's more of a experienced way of how to talk. It's no longer do they talk enough. It's more how do they talk in the expressing ideas. Yeah, we lost your camera there, Zark. So, I don't even know. Zark
he may have crashed.
Yeah.
I think we lost his Discord and
Yeah,
everything.
we lost his Discord too, I think. He's not talking.
He'll be back.
He'll be back, yeah. How about you, Vertigo? Do you think they need to talk more?
I mean, they've I wish they would bring it back, those AM fun.
The what?
The AMAs, they ask me anything.
Oh, yeah.
Those were fun. But yeah, it feels like they're doing less conversation these days. Well, they're doing World's Bar Citizens. But they're cutting back on the amount of YouTube videos and Twitch video. Do they even do live stuff anymore on Twitch?
They do. It's
okay.
Rare though. Oh, it's like maybe once a month, maybe twice a month at most.
Yeah. So they're starting to cut back on that kind of stuff, but it's really the type of community, the talking about the stuff that players want to hear. That certain people, certain parts of the community, gameplay stuff. Hey, what's the plan of this? What are we? Where's the final view of capital ships? That's the kind of stuff I want to hear. Some parts of the and again, kind of circling back. We have two parts of the community. We have not everybody's in the same box.
Yeah.
You got one part of the community who gets upset over the blades and sold the web store. You got the other part of the community who's upset they can't buy a goddamn. So different parts of the community want different occasions.
We are a big community, despite the theory that we're like kind of this small little group of crazy space enthusiasts. Like there's significant, huge parts of this community, and they're all here for different reasons. And it's always important to keep that in mind. Is that like your opinion on something? Maybe your opinion, maybe everyone in your small group agrees with you. Those of you watching at home, but like so it may feel like everyone is mad about X, Y, or Z, or thinks about X, Y, Z, or thinks this should be changed. But the reality is that the vast majority of the community doesn't think that way. It's a PvP problem. It's a problem with the PvP community because they're like less than 6% of the community, but they feel like they're the biggest community and the most vocal community because they always talk to each other. Whenever they try to talk to the PvE community like treats them like human garbage.
They just don't want to talk to them at all.
Yeah. So they're like, well, obviously we're the most important, and these like takers of PvE people, these layabouts who aren't actually here for the real game, which is PvP, and like it's that sort of problem.
I just lost the thought. I was going to have a thought about CIG's, like a microcosm of CIG's communication skill with us. The roadmap.
Yeah.
CIG puts out the roadmap, and people keep asking, like, where's this on the roadmap? Where's this? We're working on this. There's a lot of stuff that takes a lot of time to work, and if CIG has an update, they'll give it to it. A lot of time, there's no update to give, right? Because 6 months later, 6 months after CitizenCon, it's actually 5 months on. People are like, hey, where's base building? And CIG's, well, we haven't moved since we last talked about it. There's your update.
Yeah.
And Jared Huckabee loves to tell us that. Like, look to the roadmap. If you want to know what's happening, look to the roadmap. And if the roadmap doesn't, then it's not happening.
That was quite an interesting comment Jared did on the Con 42 panel, where he quite literally told we can not tell you about certain things because we don't know ourselves.
Yeah, a lot of CIG is compartmentalized. You have one hand doesn't really watch the other because you have producers on one side of the company that are working on one thing.
1,000 people over 4 different countries.
But that wasn't even his point. His point was really like, because our idea today might not be what will be done in a week or in a month, because someone might have a better solution, a better idea. And then we go with the better one.
Yeah. That's a completely different conversation, which I hate when Jared says that, when he's like, we're not afraid of doing the better solution. So it's like, are you afraid of doing a solution? Because it seems like you're afraid of doing a solution rather than a better solution. But that's a completely different one. Let's move on. Okay, this is I think it's a question for me from Serious Fun. It says, question: Invictus sits between Emancipation Day and Armistice Day, which celebrates the Akari Cray peace accord. Do you think the Xi'an have a similar week celebrating / propagandizing their military ships among Xi'an populations, and do the Banu? They don't. As far as we know, the Banu, the Xi'an don't view military service as some sort of honorable sacrifice made by the select few, because everyone serves the military in the Xi'an Empire. If you're in the Xi'an Empire, you serve in the military for a significant portion of your life, like 50 years.
It's compelled service.
Yes, everyone does it. You're required to do so. It wouldn't be really a celebrate the veterans, celebrate our armed servicemen. It's more like it's what you do. Everyone has to do it. It's part of the process. The Banu don't have the concept of a military, because They do have a military, but that military is more like a militia, and it's filled with criminals because the Banu are like, no one wants to do this job because it's not very profitable. If these people volunteer to do this job, then let them do the job for them. But it's like filled with like smugglers and pirates and outlaws who are using the militia status to like shake down people. But they also, when something needs happening, they show up. Like, oh, there's a Vandul incursion. The militia will show up to go defend them. But like
the Banu are very like nomadic and very like individual. Like a Banu company will be like an individual ship, like a Banu merchantman, and then you'll have like a couple defenses for that single Banu.
Yeah. So
right?
like a militia,
that'll be like your military.
Yeah, and like a militia, the military that would exist to defend a planet would be paid for by the entire
group of Banu, in the area.
And if they're volunteer, and most of them are volunteer, so if they're volunteer, they're not being paid for at all. So it's like they're just there on their own time, and no Banu is going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to tell this group of volunteers to go over here and deal with this problem, because it's like that's not how Banu think. It's not how they function. They function they're volunteering their time. They can do what they want. All right. Their precious time, not ours. All right. If they want to do this. So, Banu military also seeking the One Piece. Yes, they are. They do eat opening for the magic fruit. All right. Question from Colby, who said, at Con 42, Jared indicated that he has to actively not play the game as much to relax since he works on it. In general, how much do you think devs play the game compared to the fans? Very few devs play the game, but that's not a problem with Star Citizen. That is a problem with gaming in general. I don't watch my own videos because I made them, and I'm like, I don't want to see this. I've worked on this for so long, but every so often it'll come up on my feed. YouTube will recommend my own video to me, and I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And I watch it, and I'm like, damn, this is pretty good. I can't. I guess this is I guess I'm not a shit at what I'm doing. I kind of like this. And then I'll do my brain will trick me into other things, like, well, like I'll pull it up and it'll be in the background. I'll be doing something else, and I'll hear something and I'm like, hey, that's neat. I literally am talking to my own self. I literally made this myself. I completely forgot that it was mine. So I don't blame devs for working 8 hours a day on something and then being like, I'm not going to go home and play the game that I just worked 8 hours on. So.
Yeah, I've always, if you work at a pizzeria, right? You work at a pizza place that sells pizza, and your boss gives you free lunch every shift you show up at. What do you eat when you go home for dinner? Probably not pizza.
Yeah.
You're probably tired.
And a lot of them who've cut videos before, they've talked about how much they do try to play, but a lot of times time doesn't even allow them to play the game because of work. You know, they don't really get those opportunities. They when they do get the opportunity, it seems like they enjoy it, but you don't get the impression that they're, every week sitting down and playing Star Citizen. I know
they most certainly don't play Star Citizen like some of those content creators.
Yeah. It's why when it's weird because it's this thing that's not just a Star Citizen thing. I've heard this in gaming circles, like devs should be forced to play their own games. It's like it's not quite how game development works. Like they do, but they usually hire somebody outside of their circle to do said issues because you're often too close to something. So like a lot of game companies hire outside QA whose sole job is to playtest.
Right.
So they playtest and they give feedback on what's going on. So they have an idea of like, okay, this is the feel of what's going on. So just in general, I doubt that many of them play. I do know that some of them play, but a lot of the ones who play are not directly involved in the coding. A lot of them are like animators or
may not even be involved in decision-making progress. They are decision-making position.
Yeah.
They may be able to suggest stuff up, but that stuff may just get lost in the tidal wave of information from a lot of the... Chris Roberts probably gets hundreds of emails every day from inside the company And he doesn't have enough time to sit down and read all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next question. Let me see if it's pulling up. Probably get 2 or 3 more questions in there because we're almost at an hour. Gin and Tonic asks, what are the panel's favorite things about Star Citizen as it stands right now? Zark?
Personally, I really like the Hathor event. It's the mix from the Hathor event and Vicolo, so you have actually something to do for second currency. The event itself is great if it works, which it seems to do, at least when I last tried it. All the worms spawned and all those things, so the ground stuff seems to work. It's then because we need more of those events that are just, or those missions where you can just go and it's not really a mission to do, but you have something to do. You can grind towards something. You can try to get all the ore stuff, and then your nice fang and tooth and string armor, or however Wicklow calls it. So that's for sure my favorite thing right now.
Vertigo, your favorite thing in Star Citizen right now?
Oh man, I'm thinking. There's so much stuff that's pissing me off right now in Star Citizen.
You're trying to be positive.
I'm trying to be positive. You've asked a question. It's complicated, Paul.
Yeah.
It's complicated right now with me with Star Citizen at the moment.
What pisses you off the least?
Let's see here. Like, man, not driving. Flying's fun. It's still, flying around, landing, getting out, shooting the dude. That's improved a lot over the. I'm impressed by that. There's still problems. But yeah, like I said, it's a complicated feeling right now to me in Star Citizen.
You've complex feelings.
It's hard. It's hard for me to sit down right now when you just asked me that question to think of something that I enjoy after streaming Star Citizen for the past couple of days and having nothing but frustrating every stream and ending every stream the past couple of days pissed off at Star Citizen. So
yeah,
I'll have to pass.
I understand that feeling because we got the entirety of the Hathor event to work surprisingly quickly, and it ended with the cave collapsing on us and killing us because we didn't know it was on a timer, that it was only open for 15 minutes, and so we didn't know what we were doing, and like the mining stuff wasn't working properly, and we were just like, what's going on? What's happening? It killed us, and we lost all of the stuff we had kept on our bodies because we died.
Yeah.
So it's like, and we couldn't get back into it. It's like, so all that worked for 15 minutes, and there's no timer or anything. We just died because of stupid fucking, like, the game just killed us because it wanted to. No warning.
What? We had the exact same experience with an executive hangar a couple months ago, where we managed to get into one, and we're going through and looting the place, and suddenly everybody just falls over dead because a time limit inside the executive. You open them.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that the executive hangar that was already open that we were going into was well through its timer phase.
Yeah. Yeah. Those kind of things will hurt. I'll say my up to that point though, the Hathor mission was one of my favorite things to do. Yeah. Because like there was a point where we were doing an alignment, and I was in the middle of the facility. And behind me, the Ninetales were shooting at me. And in front of me, the stupid juvenile Valacar were like shooting at me. I'm stuck between a bunch of fucking worms and a bunch of fucking assholes. And I'm like, I'm getting my ass kicked here. Can somebody help me? And it felt like a game. Like those moments in Helldivers when you get cornered in the wrong place and you're like, I'm gonna die. This is awful. I need help really badly. It like that stress level went up, and not because of bugs, but because the game was actually making me think and making me work, you know? But other than that, just like trading, you know, it's so nice to just sometimes relax and just fling boxes.
Just get an ass out, be stompy mech, and just start slinging boxes.
Yeah, sling boxes and going from one place to another and getting off. And every so often you get like a little wrench tossed into you, being like, especially if you're doing like the commodity training rather than doing the missions where you're like, oh, you never know. Especially like in Pyro, you can get ambushed because this is high value and everyone knows this is high value and this is the best place to sell it. So, you know, that's nice. It's fun. Griffin, your best part of Star Citizen for you right now.
Ooh, I don't know. It's different because each one of us plays the game differently. I can understand HC's position because he does something I don't do, and that's the fact that he streams content all the time, and there's a demand for the game to be at a certain place for him to not only satisfy himself but satisfy his viewing audience, and that can be very frustrating. I'm much more casual when I approach the game, so my frustrations are much easier. I can just shut the game off where he's got a schedule and he's got to play, so it's a lot more difficult for him. My thing I'm probably noticing is that my PTSD is going away. Like, you remember when you used to like point somewhere and think you were going to go there, and then instead the game would zoom you into the planet and you die, or things that we were used to. That I actually noticed that I'm still spooked about doing certain things, and now they're starting to go away. I feel more confident, but then there's still those other bugs that rise up that rear their ugly head, like when you're trying to jump somewhere and the quantum's not working. But for me, I would say the fact that there is a little bit more sense of reliability when it comes to the game performance-wise. The game is running better, in general, for me at least, performance-wise. 30Ks, server errors are minimal, if at all, sometimes. So we can go in and play. Last night, we did a whole thing with the Idris and some other stuff, and we were in for 3 or 4 hours, and there was no problems, and everybody had a great time, and we EVA'd and did things, and it was good. So to have those experiences happening more frequently is good. It doesn't mean that we don't get those bad days, but the fact that you can get those days and walk away and say, wow, we played for X number of hours and everything went okay. The Hathor mission, the one thing I do like about that you mentioned, Paul, is that you don't have to do the Hathor mission.
Yeah.
You can just go there. And the fact that they open up that thing of just options, I don't have to deal with the laser. If I just want to go to the orbital, I can. If I just want to go on the ground, if I can. If I want to do the orbital, if I want to go in the cave.
And there's a reason to go into those places
great.
now. Because
yes,
if you want to get specific metals, you can go to those places and unlock those doors on the ground for the Hathor. And there's different metals which you can use for Wicklow. You don't have to have you don't have to do anything other than just go through there and break stuff. You don't even have to align it. But
yeah. The only other thing I would say that I am not impressed with, I'm looking forward to is Wicklow. And not Wicklow himself, but the fact that when you go into the Emporium, you see all of these items that are there that are now opening up that idea of what trading will be beyond UEC. And for people who are going to be into trading and the Banu Merchantmen and all this other stuff, the fact that, when I want to decorate, when homesteading comes in and we start building stuff, that I can go someplace like that and find little odd and end trinkets, or if I want to put a samurai sword on my wall later. I'm really looking forward to the fact that, all these things can be introduced into the game, but not just in Stanton, but maybe in some other system where I have to go there if I want these special items, either through winning them or by earning them, and of course the idea that you can trade with Wicklow and it's not about UEC, it's about doing these things that he wants you to do. Just introduces another level of economy, at least at zero level, but it's at least introducing something different to us now.
Awesome. Got a question for you guys.
Sure.
We had the Ikit, the Ikti, as a tease in Wicklow's Emporium. They shadow dropped the Idris. Do you think those samurai swords, those katanas, are also a tease for melee combat coming later this year?
Maybe not later this year, but I think soon. The thing about melee combat is that they built an entire melee combat system for Squadron.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the NP. It's for the NPCs, but anything they put in the NPCs, they can apply to players. And there's an entire system for how AI NPCs use melee. And if they have built that system, and the fact that they have those katanas in game and they use them for what was it, the commercial for Garmin Humble, I can't not see them using that at some point, because CIG is all about the rule of cool, and what's cooler than running around with a sword in space? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Around with a chain sword in space.
Yeah, or hanging outside of a tank waving a sword around. All right, we have 2 more questions I want to ask, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. The first question is from John Chaves, who asks, what lesson do you hope CIG will learn or not learn from the China early viewing of ISC? So there was a controversy because the Chinese bar citizen basically got a not so Star Citizen Live for them specifically, that was then released to everybody else last Friday.
What was the controversy? The fact that they did it for
the Chinese, yeah,
and
yeah. No, I think it's a silly controversy. it's dumb because it's like Con 42 just had an entire panel of people.
Yeah, they sure did. Yeah,
for 2 hours, and they live streamed it. But like, why are you not mad that Germany got some of the biggest people in the game who make the game to show up to their tinier convention, their tiny bar citizen, effectively, to talk about it? Like,
and I mean, if you have some idea of what China is, then you should be aware that they can't just go on Twitch or YouTube and watch Inside Star Citizen, watch Star Citizen Live. So giving them a proper, I mean, it's just my imagination, but I could very, very well think that they had to pre-tape the Star Citizen Not So Live, send them to the Chinese officials so they can approve of it, and then they could show them to the boss citizen.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it could be. I don't know about.
It could very well be. They are pretty strict with the censoring. So for that reason, I see it fully legit to do something like this for some part of your community that has some issues in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't be against it doing this for other groups like Beacon or Con 42 or any of the other. Or Quantum Vegas, but I mean, it's we're I'm a little biased there, but like there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's eventually released, and it was eventually released. So it's like,
yeah. And the reality of it is what we saw was bootleg, not to be funny, but that's what we saw beforehand. So we still got the same content and information. I mean, here's the funny thing about it: CIG is usually very particular about revealing too much stuff. Even at bar citizens and stuff, right? That's one of the reasons why they've done that. So the fact that they did share some information with us about the direction that they want to go with the interview with John Crew, to me, it's like, okay, guys, it was a week later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't get anything that we didn't get. And it was some more information that gave us some insight into the development of the game. So, we got something. And the Asian market, let's face it, the Asian market had been neglected for a very long time with CIG, especially when it came down to the servers and everything else, you know? So shoot, they get 1,000, 2,000 people showing up at their bar citizens. And I hate to say that, but they get a community that shows up for that stuff.
Yeah, they do. And they don't have, there's a huge community there. There's communities all over the world, which are pretty big, pretty sizable, that CIG either can't or won't address. Like, at one point, I knew there was a fairly big Brazilian community that was coming up in Star Citizen, but like how likely is it that CIG is gonna go down to Brazil to a bar citizen and say Rio or something like that? Like, no, that's never gonna happen. So like, in general, them going to a place that they rarely get to go to be able to talk is good. I think it's fine. The lesson should be. The Star Citizen community is weirdly weird about the Chinese community. The Western community is really weird about Chinese community, but they deleted the Brazilian forums a while back. I can't remember them flying to Brazil. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
They used to go to Australia. Yeah, that's the other thing. They haven't been to Australia since PAX Australia. So, what is your thought, Vertigo, on what lessons should CIG learn from the controversy around the pre-taped video that they did for the Chinese community?
There was a controversy around it.
Yeah, people were very mad about it.
People don't like the Chinese because of racism.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean,
totally.
I mean, the Chinese get something, but then CIG gives us this stuff. they didn't go there in person, did they? I thought it was like a
They went there in person too. Yeah.
Pre-taped.
Mhm.
No, John went there in
Yeah.
person.
There.
So it was like
Okay,
John
so
went
they
there
had
in
John Cruiser-
person, but I think they could only send one person or something like that. I think it was just John and maybe one other person was
Yeah.
there. But
So they had all that stuff came out like the day of,
yeah,
right?
bootlegged. But
So
yeah.
in America, like in the English speaking world, right? So it's just CIG trying to service a new market. And I understand a lot of gamers don't like the Chinese because bad interactions in other games, I guess. But yeah, like
No idea.
I don't know. Like, I could whatever. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Don't,
it's dumb.
it's a dumb. I agree. It's dumb. It's has nothing to do with the game or how the game functions. So it's like, okay.
We got the same information the Chinese got eventually.
Yeah, and in fact, some glorious. What did I nickname him? Lee. My good friend Lee in China managed to bootleg copy a phone copy that was recorded then posted on what was it, Huawei? I can't remember the name. Their version
the
of
Chinese
YouTube.
social apps. Yeah,
one of their Chinese version of YouTube, which was then immediately put over into Western YouTube, and everyone got to see it.
Yeah.
So it was like, good job, Lee. You did good. All right. Next question. The last question we have is from. This is a spicy question, so I want to leave it for last. Pull it up again.
Spicy.
Okay. That's not that one. I already looked at that one. Okay. Rusty Pigeon Gaming Channel asks, must Star Citizen be a free-to-play funded by shop selling or with a subscription model or buying ships for real money? The future of Star Citizen subscription. That's why I've wanted to, or its funding model, which would be the future. I want to leave this for last because I thought it was like, it's a deep question to ask. And I'll start with you on this one, Griff, unless you want me to start.
My model, well, I've got to my suggested model is that they will continue to do concept ships, and that's the only time that you'll be able to pay cash for them. Once you go beyond concept ships, the only way to get them after that is the game. Cosmetics should be a thing that should be available. I am highly against the idea of a subscription model. I've always said that would be my breaking point for CIG, even though I'm probably lying through my teeth, but I have to say that. I don't think that and I know that people will say that, well, as long as there's always people will buy them, they will. But I think if they always do starter packages, that'll always be available. That's why we have several of them. I think that they should do concept ships. But once a concept ship is done, that's it. You can't buy them anymore. The only way to get them is in the game. That would be my model for it.
Where'd it
go? Changing Star Citizen's business model. I don't think they'll ever stop selling.
Okay.
They're always going to be. They've made way too much selling starships over the years. $800 billion. Why would they ever stop? And I think we're going to see a lot of more of the Mark II stuff coming out. The Asgard is a Mark II version of the Valkyrie. We had literally a Mark II version of Hornets. We're probably gonna see a Mark II version of Dangerous come out at some point, just straight better for Dangerous. We may see Star Citizen go free to play in the future because that always brings in more players. That's usually when you go free to play. Usually you're struggling with player base.
That's
not
the death
monetary.
of the MMO.
Yeah. I mean, it makes more sense for MMOs to be free to play these days, anyways. Having a subscription base, Star Citizen is basically halfway there to a free play MMO.
Mm-hmm.
Like we keep teetering around, playing with the idea every year, a couple times every year. And I feel like the free to play stuff just keeps happening more and more and more and more frequently. They keep having, we released this new patch, free to play. Release another patch, free to play. Hey, we have Invictus, free to play. Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, free to play.
I feel like
come check out Star Citizen.
Even before
Eve's
this
model
year,
work. I'm sorry.
I was
going to ask this because you know how they have it both ways, right? You got free up to a point, and then after that you go to the subscription thing, or you earn the credits.
It must work because WoW uses it. WoW uses the same model. You can free to play up to like level 20, and then you have to pay for it. So
you get a taste of the game, and then you can decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Maybe
works. The reason, the argument I've always seen against free to play for Star Citizen is that free to play games notoriously have hard times dealing with hackers and other people who exploit, because they will make a free account specifically to create and test a new hack.
Yeah.
And even if that account gets banned, they don't give a shit. They can just like make another account because it doesn't cost.
That's one of the
anything.
reasons why Chris Roberts wanted to have a buy-in. So banning hackers.
Yeah. That was one of his big things, was like having a buy-in will at least create a bit of a blanket.
A bite.
Yeah. So like if like, oh yeah, well I got my $45 account banned. It's like, cool. How many $45 accounts are you willing to purchase? So you're getting that money back. So that's one of the reasons why they've had a lot of trouble, especially around free flights, where they test a lot of hacking companies or hacking groups test their hacks out during free flights, because they can do that and they can get banned and see if it worked or not, and see if they get caught. So I think there's always personally, I think there's a, well, I'll let Zark go. Zark, what are your idea for the future of Star Citizen's funding?
The easiest way would pretty obviously be subscription model. Like World of Warcraft uses this, it works. Final Fantasy uses it, it works. You could supplement it with a higher tier subscription model like we have right now with the subscriber flares and so on. You could supplement it with cosmetics. You could even be so fair and say, okay, early backers, we divide your pledged money by the subscription fee, and so many months you have free on the house. There are a lot of ways you could do this. Subscription base is always hit or miss, I say. On the one hand, it is pretty much, it's not, if you keep it to the, I say standard $10, it's not too expensive. It's, if we break down what we've pledged over those 10 years, it's probably where we are at, either way. Maybe more, maybe less. It has a sort of premium status. So people who look at the game usually associate subscription base with premium game, premium service, quality. It's the difference to a free-to-play game. The other part is you make a voluntary subscription base for certain in-game benefits, like it's right now with the subscriber items. You could add cosmetics, you could go with certain paint schemes or something. Different games doing it. You could still do concept chips. Issue with concept chips I see is there's only so many you can sell without the backlog growing too much. Overall, the big question in the end is how large is CIG when Star Citizen 1.0 will release? Because even if we talk about, I mean, the big issue is they need to make a system that forces players to play the game.
Yeah.
And selling all those ships means I don't need to play the game. I can play the game, but I don't need to grind to a certain ship because I already bought it. Same with equipment, same with gear, and so on. There are a million things. Personally, it's not my favorite, but I'd probably say they should go for a subscription system because it's the easiest way to do it. There are many other games that do it successfully, so you can copy their homework. You can always supplement it with other things. We already have a subscription system working for Star Citizen, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And I think it is the least controversial one.
Yeah, I think I don't think ship sales will. I do think ship sales will still happen, but I do think they're going to transition. I think what Griff said is probably right. They'll probably have some sort of concept ship, or they'll have a straight to flyable option where you can buy the ship as it comes out, or also have it in game at the same time. CIG keeps saying there's some legal issue with that. I have no fucking idea what they're talking about, but like it seems like maybe they invented their own rules on that part and then are trying to follow it.
Yeah, I think that's what the argument is that was a part of their arrangement and their deal that they gave to us as a community. And so since so many people bought based on that, if they go and change it, they're going to be people who might rail against it.
Cool.
Because remember, that was a big deal back in the day.
Yeah, it was a big deal in 2014. It's 2025.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. But you know how some of our folks are.
That's fine.
Yeah, and you have to consider CIG has like 20 or 30 countries where they have a player base, where they have to consider law.
Yeah.
So it could be very well that some of the larger communities that the country might even very well be Germany, that they have some issues there if they do some strange stuff.
I think they could change that though. That's one of those. I don't think there's a law in Germany that says if you sell something for money, you have to hold it over for a certain amount of time before you're available in game. Because like,
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
That's a law that I've never heard of anywhere. It seems like a really weird, even consumer protection law, because it's also anti-consumer. So it's like.
There could be some law. I have no idea.
I vaguely remember a news story, and I've tried to look for this, but I hadn't found anything where CIG had to remove Squadron 42 off the website because you're not allowed to sell stuff without having released it within a year or something. Yeah. I think that was a European Union law.
Yeah. Was European?
I vaguely remember that.
So the whole virtual laws in regard we have in Europe are insane sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're quite good. For example, loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
They cracked pretty hard down on those, but there are some crazy things. So might very well be that they actually have some law to uphold if they bring it out as a pledge and have to do some staggered release or something. I have no idea. But it could be.
So like, I think releasing them at the same time is fine. But I also think that an optional subscription should be there with some perks, some small things like cosmetics or like crafting blueprints or something like that. What they have now, they already have this optional subscription program. Works. It's nice. It's just not quite there yet. I think if they crafted it to be more of a in-game thing as well as an out-of-game thing, people would be okay with it. And then the big thing is microtransactions. The big thing I would say, and this has always been my thing, is that if they changed the current skin system to instead be a pattern and palette, where you can get a skin that has all of the colors for that skin already included in it. You still get the skin, you still get the palette, you still get all the colors, but you can then change the colors to whatever pattern matches the pattern of the actual skin, or you can add different colors in there to go create whatever you want to. It's what MechWarrior Online does in terms of how it does customization. Apparently, it's also how. Why am I blanking on it? War Thunder. It's
World of War Tanks.
It's the Space Ninja game.
Warframe.
Warframe. Yeah, Warframe also does it. And you know, like those sorts of ideas where you can have a skin which is more like a pattern, and then you have colors you can swap out for that pattern, and then you can swap the patterns out for whatever colors you want to. And every time you buy a skin, you get the skin, the pattern, and the colors, and then you can also get the colors in game, you know, to unlock them, to you do them where you have a basic palette in game, and then you can get different patterns in game for different, you know, different rewards, or even craft them. Because then you can sell a color palette, you know, like reflective metallic paints for $1.99 or something like that. People would, you don't have to, you could find it in game too, but you get all of these different options for that. So like those sorts of systems would work really well for personal expression in the game while being able to make a little bit of money. And I guarantee you, more people will buy shiny metallic color palette for $199 than are going to buy the fucking Idris for $1,000 because more people have $2 running around or $5 laying around than $1,000. And it'd be a lot more of a, I'll take that. More people be like, I like to support this game. Oh, look, this ship I have has this pattern and these colors. I'm going to buy this as a nice little, gift for me, but also as a thank you. It's like more people, if gamers are weird, we're a very weird group in terms of consumers because my wife follows a game called Stardew Valley. I'm sure some of you have played it. Some of you in chat, some of you watching it have played it. It's made by a solo developer named Concerned Ape. And he released an entire an update to the game, which was basically a brand new game to the game. And people were going out of their way to try to get their parents, get their friends, their family to buy it. They would buy copies, extra copies they'd have so they could give it to other people. Even though he didn't, especially since he didn't charge for it. They were like, okay, you're not going to charge for it, but we're going to buy from your merch store now because we're going to have to give you back something for it. Like gamers are like that. If you have the trust of a community, they will go out of their way to give you money. So thank you.
If they like your product, they throw money at you.
Yeah. And they'll do everything they can to do that. And so like, see, that's one of the reasons why I think CIG should try to build that community more, because they already have that community where people will literally pay thousands of dollars just because they want to collect the spaceship. Not necessarily they don't want to use it in game or anything. They have it because they want to keep it for their store. And they also I'd like to support the development,
looks cool. Ape want.
Yeah. But if you do that at like the tiny level, the micro level, now instead of having like the 12 whales who can afford it, now you have 12,000 people who can afford it. And now all of them will do it. Good example of that, the MPUV. The MPUV won best in show because we memed it to shit and back and got it to win because it still deserves that win. Short King Rise Up. They sold a fuck ton of those MPUVs because more people would have bought the MPUV than for all the little extra gear because they could afford it because it was like $25 or like $30 compared to the other ones that were in contention, which were like $600. I guarantee you CIG made more money off of that than everything else, but they haven't taken the right direction in that. So I basically the short answer is what they're doing slightly modified and expanded. So that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for check out Griffin on Soul Citizens. Of course, you can find Griffin and myself at Quantum Vegas on July 12th, where we'll be there the day before, July 11th for Bar Citizen, and then we'll be at Area 15 there. You can go to quantumvegas.space to get your tickets. It's $99 right now, and it'll go up. It'll go up at the end of this month. So get it while it's hot. Go check out HC Vertigo, twitch.tv/HCVertigo, youtube.com/HCVertigo to check those out. And you can find Zark with my organization, the League of Relic Enthusiasts, where we meet on Sundays on my Discord, which was linked in the area below. As always, if you did enjoy this, make sure that you hit that follow button or subscribe on YouTube, like the video. Hit the bell icon to be notified when release. We go do these live on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you come ask your own questions when the bot is working. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.